All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in today. My name is Dr. Jacques Moser. I'm a chiropractor here in Oakmont, Pennsylvania, and I'm also a functional medicine practitioner. So for those of you who know me, I am all about running stool tests. And why is that? It's not because I like poo. It's because it gives you the most information that is the most impactful, in my opinion, whenever it comes to your overall health. So today what I'm going to be doing is answering a question that I got on Instagram, actually, is how young do we do stool tests on, or what's the earliest age you can do stool tests on? Now, I've done stool tests at very, very early ages. The tough part is that, under 2 years old, if the child's still in a diaper, you want to try to get a sample that is not being tampered with any urine on it. So not to get gross right in the beginning of the cast here, but you want to try to get a pure stool sample. So sooner you can get that, the better. Now, if your child is having rashes or they're having massive colic and you can't figure out what's going on, the first thing I would recommend is do a stool test, or do a food sensitivity test. Super easy to do. You can do it on yourself as the mom, or you can have your child run it as well. They'll do a heel prick. You just have to find a good phlebotomist to do it. But really, it's a simple way to make sure you're putting good foods that aren't causing harm into your child's health. So stool tests. So I love stool tests. I'm going to go over one today. I'm going to be going back and forth on my screens here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be able to see and visualize what I'm showing you whenever it comes to my favorite stool test. So here's what we got. We have a stool test coming in from a 4-year-old. Okay, this is a 3-year-old. 3-year-old. So we just got this one back early July this year. And so what we're going to see is a little something that makes probably everyone kind of uncomfortable here. All right, so hopefully my audio is coming in okay there. Not being able to see anything of that nature. All right, so basically what we're seeing here is the stool test. So this one is one of my babies. I love this one. This is the GI map stool test. What this is going to do is going to give you a good input of what good bacteria are in there, what bad ones are in there, what may have overgrown, what are your probiotics currently doing, or are they not doing anything at all? Are you taking a really terrible probiotic and you're not getting the benefits from them? And then do you have any type of infections that could be going on? Anything from viruses, yeasts, bacterias, Epstein-Barr. It's all going to be written out and shown on this test. So that's what I'm going to be going through. So let's slide through this here. So this page right off the bat, this is your bacterial pathogens. So these are the ones that do not belong in the body at basically any level. And if they do, they can cause massive harm, not just to, as an adult, but especially to a child. So if a child's dealing with an intestinal infection, sometimes it gets passed, yeast tends to get passed from mom to child. If there's mold toxicity, sometimes that can lower the immune system enough to allow for infections to take place, or there's just a poor diet. A lot of moms are feeding their kids really poor formula, not being fed breast milk, trying to pump them full of milk products, and it's really, dairy is one of the most inflammatory foods you can have, and that will damage your child's gut. So whatever you do, try to avoid cow's milk. If you need to do some sort of formula based, you can do more of a goat's milk based, and you will get a much better result. Okay, so remember that. So going down through this test here, first page are doing all right, and then we have this guy over here. This is H. pylori. This is an infection that, again, being a 3-year-old, you shouldn't really have this thing creeping up. This one goes after the stomach. It's related to stomach cancer. It's related to food sensitivities. It's related to upset stomach, diarrhea. Sometimes you can have constipation. It's really a pain in the butt, literally and quite figuratively there too. So awesome. Perfect. I got some confirmation. Audio is doing good. What's up, guys? All right, so this one right here is going to be a measurement into like the probiotic system. So what is the good bacteria doing? What's the microflora doing in the gut? And so we have a couple that are high. So we have lactobacillus is high, which is one of your most common probiotics that people take. Enterobacter is high, Akkermansia is high, and then Phacobacterium prosnitzi. It's a fun one to say. That one's a little bit on the lower end. Firmicutes is a little bit higher. So we have a phase 1 problem. So we have an imbalance in the good, healthy bacteria in the gut, and it's going to show on the following pages. You can kind of see a little bit of this coming through. So we have additional bacteria overgrowth. So this is your opportunistic. So what this means is your digestive tract has to be in a weakened state. It lowers its immune system, and then your bad bacteria or your good bacteria take an opportunity to overgrow. It upsets the system, and what it's going to do is cause infections to actually take place. So when you're causing infections to take place, what does that look like in the world of you? Okay, what does that look like in the world of you? When you have those infections take place, it's going to cause anything from autoimmune disease. It can cause basic just constipation, diarrhea. It can cause skin issues. It can cause rashing. It can cause heartburn. I mean, realistically, you name it, and it can cause it. Now, in children, one of the most common reasons that parents test their children, what do you think it is? Put it in the comment box for the most common reasons people want to do a stool test on their children. I'll wait here for you guys. It's probably not what you're going to write on here. All right, it's going to be behavioral issues. I'm going to say that again. Behavioral issues. Anything from autism, Asperger's, learning developmental disorders, not being able to keep their weight on, or again, we talked about already, constipation, diarrhea, or just a constant bloated in the stomach. Those type eczema, yeah, absolutely. Behavior, yeah, I love it. So they already kind of know this. So perfect, guys. Yes. So behavior is huge because you have this massive gut-brain connection, and if you're not nurturing your gut, your brain will be inflamed. That will also allow for you to have more food sensitivities or food aversions, and it'll make your child be a very, very, very picky eater because they're going to be more in tune with their body than you can ever possibly be. So when they eat something, if they feel terrible, they're going to be more likely not to have that food be introduced back into their body. And they're going to scream, they're going to go nuts, they'll hold their stomachs, they'll throw temper tantrums, and they'll be horribly behaved, all because you could have something going on in the digestive tract. Now, I've seen, again, on this one, you'll see a couple infections, but I've seen young children, I've seen 2-year-olds with H. pylori, like an actual physical infection. I've seen parasites. I've seen massive yeast overgrowth. You name it. You really don't know it because sometimes you can have those subclinical symptoms. But I think stool tests are one of the most basic things that should be run. I mean, you go to your pediatrician for a well visit. I think that's a lie in the name, but I think every child should have food sensitivity testing done to make sure that they have that going on. Maybe do a genetic marker too, see if you have MTHFR, so that way you can have a vaccine exemption on that. And then do a stool test, figure out if you have any type of imbalance, because that will cause your kid to not be able to develop properly. And those of you who know, my son just turned 2 years old. We're going to be doing a stool test on him just for craps and giggles, pun intended. And then, when our next daughter, or my daughter, comes out end of October, give it some time, and we'll run a stool test on her. It's all about being preventive, so that way we don't have any terrible symptoms that come, and we're like, where the heck did that come from? Okay, so scrolling down. Anyways, I digress as usual. Here we go. All right, so looking down through here, we've got the bacillus. We have Enterococcus faecalis is high. Staph and strep. So those are two very common strains that a lot of people already know about. So strep and staph, that means that. So you can have bacteria that creep in from your digestive tract, go up into the throat, and then harbor themselves in the mouth. That's one of the things, antibiotics, they try to toss them at those to try to crush that bacteria. But a lot of times they stay in the oral cavity. So children with teeth, obviously, once they push the teeth through, you have to make sure you're getting in a healthy toothbrushing routine. Because if they're not, then you're going to have those bacteria still sit around there. You have some delicate teeth, and they can still keep passing infections down from their mouth down into their belly. But then, talking about strep, like strep and staph, you can have strep throat. Staph, you can have usually skin issues associated with that. Anything from, like was mentioned, eczema, psoriasis can pop out. You can have issues with the scalp as well. Even little pimples all around the body, that could be associated with staph infection. So just a fun fact for you guys to know on that. And then we go down over here. So this was something that kind of blew me away. I'm going to share my screen again. All right, so here's what we have. I'm hoping you guys can see this, loud and proud on here. Oh, here we go. Let's zoom this in. Look at that. That's fancy right there. All right, so what we're seeing here, ladies and gentlemen, is we have a couple of markers that are abnormally high here. So steatocrit's a measurement and basically on how the digestive tract is doing in terms of the liver and the gallbladder. So how well is she handling fats at a 3-year-old age? She's starting to creep up percentage-wise to not be able to handle that very well. We want this technically to be below detectable limits. And on this one, is Blastocystis hominis CA. You go ahead and fill me in on that. Is Blastocystis hominis CA? If you could let me know what you meant by CA, I'll answer that question for you, no problem. So beta-glucuronidase, again, popping in there. Beta-glucuronidase is a particular set of bacteria that will actually uncouple estrogen in the body. When that creeps up high, we can have things like colon cancer or estrogen receptor positive cancers that creep up and then express themselves. So at a 3-year-old age, we definitely don't want that number to be high. And how else are you going to get that measurement? That's not something that you're going to get at your pediatrician. That's not something that you're going to get at your medical doctor. You need to do these functional tests to see how well the person is functioning. Okay. Blood, fortunately, no blood was popping out on there. The secretory IgA, so we're having a lowering of the immune system. Again, we keep talking about COVID. Secretory IgA is one of the biggest markers that we have to have normal. It's usually stress related, and if that goes down too low, then we don't have the immune system to fight off inward infection. So let's see. Sorry, cause you do not have growth of beneficial bacteria. So that's a kind of a trick question. I'm going to detour to that questionnaire. So can blastocystis hominis cause you to not have growth of beneficial bacteria? Yes. But can the abnormal growth of beneficial bacteria also cause blastocystis hominis? Yes. So parasites, by definition, are things that don't belong in the environment, and it's a one-way relationship. So parasites, when they leech on there, think of the grossest thing you can. They're pulling nutrients and they're causing massive inflammation to the digestive tract, and then they tend to burrow in and like these little layers down into the gut, which can make them very difficult to get out, which is another reason why if you have a parasite protocol, you have to make sure you're 1,000% on that, and then don't do a flipping parasite program if you don't have a parasite. I can't say that enough. So yeah, it can go back and forth, but usually there's a phase 1 problem, so an imbalance in the healthy bacteria before you would actually be able to get a parasite. And we usually see a correlation with poor stomach acid as well, because when a parasite pops in, it goes down through the stomach, and the stomach actually usually burns all bacteria, parasites, and yeasts up. So if it did find its way across, it's like kind of what came first, the chicken or the egg. It can kind of go both ways, but it's definitely blastocystis is not one of those ones you want to have in there. It's another one that's a fun conversation to have with medical doctors because they don't see it as a problem, but it causes massive problems in the intestinal tract. Anti-gliadin IgA. I love this one, guys, because I hate gluten. I hate it so much, and we have a test for that. So we can see if you can actually have an immune reaction to gluten. Now, this isn't a specific test for celiac or anything of that nature, but this tells you that when you eat gluten, you are mounting an immune system to gluten. So what's really easy to feed children? Bread, crackers, all the stuff with gluten and things in it, but is it causing harm to your child? Absolutely. So they already have infections going on. They have bacterial infections. We have a reaction to gluten in there. We have beta-glucuronidase being high, and we have zonulin being high. Again, at 3 years old, zonulin is a direct measurement of leaky gut. So the question is, do you have leaky gut? Zonulin would say yes, absolutely. And that puts you at a higher risk because that means those infections that you do have, blastocysts, if you have that infection or if you have yeast, bacteria, it can go systemic. It can hop out into the bloodstream and recirculate around and really cause havoc throughout the body. And it can sometimes take longer to kill those infections and treat those symptoms because we have to get to that root cause and make sure it stops going out, seal up that leaky gut so that way you're healed and good to go. So the other thing on this test, I'm not a huge fan of antibiotics by any stretch of the imagination, but if we have a case where you have something really aggressive that's going to absolutely crush you, kill you, if you're like, I don't want to do the functional medicine thing, it's going to take too long, whatever your excuse is, and you just want to blast your body, that actually tells you if you have any type of genetic markers that would say, nope, those antibiotics don't work for your body, so you'd actually be causing even more harm than good. So to wrap this up here real quick, guys, ladies and gentlemen, let me get back to my main screen here. So long story short, what do? We always want to test things before they turn into a problem. We had some behavioral issues on this one. We have some patients, again, coming into bloating, constipation, diarrhea. You really want to get to that root cause so that way we set the foundation for health, not just when we're adults, but when we're children. So that way we have the best, smartest kids that are out there. And honestly, I'll do a brag on my son. He's probably one of the smartest kids that I've ever met for being his age. Again, he just turned 2, and the kid's crushing puzzles. He can read. Like he is head and shoulders above where most children are. And I believe it's because he's getting adjusted. He eats a really well-balanced diet. He probably eats more berries and fruits than I do, even though I have a raspberry intolerance. So that being said, this stuff works. The proof is in the pudding. If you haven't tested yourself as an adult, you should. And if you have a child, you should definitely test them as well, just to rule anything out and then make sure you do things the way that you're supposed to. So that being said, I'm going to sign off here today. If you found this information useful, I appreciate you tuning in. Like it, share it, comment it on it. We're going to be doing weekly Saturday morning Facebook Lives. We're going to call it, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain fart, Limitless Healing with Dr. Jacques Moser on Saturdays at 9 a.m. Eastern. It's a great time for people to jump on. We're going to be talking about stress, how that impacts your health, and we're going to do this month of August as a stress month because I think we can all agree that with all this COVID and everything else and rules and regulations, we're stressed more than we have ever been in our entire lives. And I'm going to explain strategies on how you can avoid that stress, how you can cope with that stress, so that way you don't have your health just going out the back door. So anyways, thank you all. Love you guys. Have an awesome day.